I'm gonna tell you something right now. Like, I did not realize that I let residency change my personality. I didn't realize how much of a different person that I became during residency and even after residency. Right. And
Reid on. I think residency does do things to people, takes people to dark places that they've never been before.
Is that residency's fault or is that the person's fault? You know, I'll be honest with you. Like, you start to realize, look, the only way I could survive is like you start taking on like your captor's mentality.
Yeah, you're like, I'm the captain now.
Look at me, sure. I'm the captain now. What?
Yo, what up, everyone? Welcome to another episode of Docs Outside the Box. I'm Dr. Nee, joined by my amazing co-host, Dr. Renee. What's good? Welcome.
You forgot exhausted.
Yo, you look tired as hell, yo.
I am tired
as hell.
Yeah, you people like look tired. Yeah, that's me, right? If you're not watching on YouTube right now, y'all are missing. But yo, you know how when your eyes kind of like your eyelids,
the hoodie look, guys. If you're not watching, Renee is she's potting with a hoodie on. When you know which is the ultimate, like, I don't give
damn.
IGDAF.
You know, people watch and listen with their kids in the car and eat. Like,
yeah, they do. I'm sorry.
You like,
yo, real quick.
Alfred, like,
everybody,
you gotta beep out
everybody
that
who's listening. Hold on. To everybody who's listening, who I work with, to everyone who's listening, who, in some form or fashion, like, we talk on often. Like, don't take none of this personally, all right? Like, people be listening, they be coming up to me, seriously, at work. People come up to me like, oh, why are you talking about it? Ain't nobody talking about you guys. Stop taking things so personal and mind your business and give me a thumbs up as well as subscribe on YouTube.
How can they mind their business and give you a thumbs up and subscribe on YouTube and give you a 5-star review and all those things while they're minding their business? That would mean that they're minding your business, which is this podcast. So everybody,
contradiction. I'm a walking contradiction.
So
everyone.
anybody who has walked up to you,
I really appreciate everybody who understands that, you know, sometimes we all will say one thing, but then we walk in a different way. So, hey, that's
so you a lie. That's it.
Yeah.
You a lie.
And so are you. And so is everybody who listens to the show. They're a damn lie.
You a goddamn lie.
Damn, Nee.
All right, guys, let's jump into this. But we got some things that we got to cover. But before we get into that, let's, you know, we try to stay current, or we need to start staying more current, Renee, on what's going on. So let's go to really serious news really quick. So I'm not sure exactly when this show is coming out, but we're recording this on the 25th. But this past weekend, not too far from me, there was a shooting at UPMC Memorial Hospital. Long story short, a guy, he lost his wife and was very upset, came to the hospital the day before.
I heard about this.
They turned him away. And then the day of the event, he actually came to the hospital. He had a semi-automatic in his bag, had zip ties, everything. And he basically held an ICU hostage. A police officer who came to provide help was shot in the torso. You know, unfortunately, he passed away. So prayers to his family. Prayers, you know, rest in peace to the officer. But yeah, there were folks in the ICU that were held hostage, and there was a gunfight. And you know, the shooter was, or the person who was accosting people, he was killed. And this is crazy because it's been all over social media. You know, there's the PA who actually gave the bad news to the person who was shooting. You know, he put out a Facebook post saying that, you know, when he gave that information to the person, you know, he just saw, you know, a patient's family member who just was hearing the worst news of their life. And then to see that, and then to see that person in the next, you know, in another
24, 48 hours.
It's crazy. And, you know, he's saying that the healthcare system is broken. You know, I don't know if that's necessarily the reason why. I'm going to chime in. I don't know if that's necessarily the reason why someone would come up and shoot up or zip tie people. I can't see that as a reason. But I look at it more of, we got a violence problem in the United States. You know, we got a violence problem.
That's
it's a major issue. And I know what I'm saying is look, what I'm saying is, you know how like there's just certain things that are just like it's obvious, right? Like we have a violence issue. And the reason I'm speaking up about this and saying something about it is I give bad news every day. Sometimes 3, 4, 5 times, even more than that, a day, right? For various different things to the point where it affects how I even interact with my family. Like I understand certain things, right? Like I handle things with my parents differently or handle things with different people because I'm always I'm not a skeptic. You know, there's a skeptic versus cynic, right? I don't know where I fit in there, but you know, I just understand life and the cycle of life and how life is can just be snuffed out just like that. I think the
Mm-hmm.
rest of the public doesn't understand that, particularly people who don't do exactly what we do. And, you know, I can't, I don't know, to respond in a way where then you go after the people, you know, who are providing news and then just say that the healthcare system is broken. I feel like that's, I feel like there needs to be more of a investigation. Like there needs to be more of an explanation as to what's going on, right? Because if you're someone who's getting zip tied and, you know, someone is coming in with a semi-automatic, I don't know if you want to hear the answer of like, yo, the healthcare system is broken, right? Um, I don't know. It's just it's crazy. It's crazy. If you're a family member, if you're the family member of the police officer who died, it's like I don't know. What are your thoughts? I'm sorry, I didn't mean to put you on the spot, but I just had to say that.
No, I mean, I think I don't know why I don't know why the person who wrote the Facebook post wrote what they wrote. Um, but I'm thinking that maybe there's a little more context that we just don't know, that we just don't understand, as to why he or she would say that the healthcare system is broken. Um, there may be a little more context there, that we're just not privy to. But either way, it does not excuse.
I think what he was trying to say, it highlights that there's so many issues within our healthcare system, like how we, you know, what we do in terms of people dying, the resources that we have to family members,
Mhm.
how expensive medications are. He listed a whole bunch of different things, but
Right.
go
That's
into
why
what
I
you're saying.
said that's why I said, like, I don't know if there's more context there, right? Like, was this a preventable death? And when I say preventable, I don't mean preventable in the moment, right? Because we see preventable deaths occur. At the moment that the death is happening, it's not preventable. But the question is, well, what? Let's right rewind back 2 years, 4 years before, 6 months before, and what is that context? That's kind of the question that I'm asking. Um, I would just need more context as to why the person would pin this on the healthcare system. And that's not to say that the healthcare system is not broken, because we know that it is. And as physicians, there's just so much that we can do. We don't run the healthcare system. Literally nobody in the hospital who is seeing patients runs the healthcare system. We are part of the healthcare system, but we don't make the larger decisions as to, how the actual system is going to work. We
Yeah,
have influence.
we're the forward
Yeah,
facing
right,
view of what's going on behind the scenes, you
right.
know,
We
and
have influence in the
it's like
system.
people cursing out a air, you know, the people at the kiosks at the airlines,
Right,
you know,
right.
things like like they can't do nothing. They're
Right.
not
The
making the rules.
policy the
You may
policy
feel
is the
good.
policy. Right.
Yeah.
But I will say this, right? Even in the context of, the airlines and stuff like that, we do influence, right? We do influence the execution of the healthcare system, right? So basically what I mean is this. The policy is the policy, yeah. But bedside manner, how you approach people, what
Mm,
you
look at
decide that
you.
you can do,
Oh shit. Dr. Renee's
what you
cooking.
decide you're not going to do, even though you can do it, right? We see that all the time. You know, if you go to the airport, if somebody wants to bump you up to first class, they can do it. They can do it, right? But if they don't feel like doing it, they're not going to do it.
Well, but that's customer service. So is the customer
But that's what
service in
I'm
that
saying.
situation the same as the customer service in medicine? Right.
Yes, because when you think about Press Ganey scores, what is that about? Press Ganey scores is just a customer service score,
Yeah.
right? It's
Well,
a customer service score.
here's something I want to press out. Um, I was thinking about. Oh, I lost track. Sorry. Go. Keep going. I'm gonna cut you back off in
Come here
minutes. Keep
when you're
going.
ready. No, but
Yeah.
I was gonna say also,
Made me
it
lose my
does
train of
not
thought.
it does not excuse the behavior of the gentleman who lost his wife, right? Like, to say that the US has a violence problem is an understatement, right? It's a complete understatement. And the US has had violence problems since 1492, you know? And it has continued on like that has become the culture, of this country, that essentially there's not a period in time where there has not been violence as the soup of the day. And so when you have as kind of this cultural tradition that, violence is essentially the way to deal with things, then yeah, even on an individual level, right? We're not even talking about going to war or, moving Native Americans, off their lands and annihilating them. We're not talking about hosing people, Black people down in the street. We're not even talking about those things. We're just talking about on an individual level, right? We have whole shows dedicated, right,
You ever
to
think
taking
about what
people
we get
out.
used to? You ever think about what we get used to in terms of
Yeah,
where we appreciate violence or
yeah.
where we accept violence? Like we've gotten
It's
acceptable,
entertainment.
we've grown to, well, not the entertainment part. I'm saying that we've grown to accept violence at schools. We've
Yeah,
grown to accept violence at churches,
right.
playgrounds. Now we have to start getting used to having violence at
In the
hospitals,
hospital.
right? And that's crazy.
Absolutely.
I'm not saying it's crazy, but it's just
It's
like
crazy.
imagine you going through and realizing that, yo, like this could be your last day. Or like I find myself like going to the ICU. I'm like, is there another way to get out of here? No, I'm serious. Is there another way to get out of this ICU? Is there another way to get out of this thing? Because like I said, I give bad news all the time, and it's the worst with me because I'm the type of person who will tell you, it's not me specifically, but with what I do, it's like this person did not wake up thinking that their life was going to change
Going to
dramatically
end.
on this
Yeah,
day. Whereas with most
right.
place things in medicine, like if someone is going to pass away, it's kind of like it's a long,
It's
drawn
a
out
spiral.
process. There's a spiral, right? Like and if you're a hospitalist, more than likely outside of a heart attack, you know, there's this like spiral of things that someone is going to pass with. But in trauma, it's like you wake up, that's it. You don't, it's
Yeah.
crazy
I
consistently.
think
So
that's
it's
for
like,
both
man,
of us.
people come in like, yo, I am not like, what are you talking about? Like you just told me to come to the hospital. Now you're telling me that my loved one is gone. That is nuts. And someone can flip out. Like I remember when I was in Chicago and I was at Cook County, like there was a couple of times where I was like, yo, like giving bad news to people. It's like, yo, let me get out of this room because these people going crazy.
Gang
A couple of
members.
times in Atlanta, it's happened. It's happened even here in Pennsylvania, in rural Pennsylvania. It's like, wait, what? I'm gonna step out, and then at the same time now, like you become the focus of their anger. That is tough. That's a tough place to be. Tough place to be.
Yeah, I think for you and I both, right?
And let's
For
and let's
what
wrap
we
this up real
do.
quick. Let's wrap it up. Go
Yeah,
ahead with what you're
I
saying.
think for you and I both, right, for what we do, you as a trauma surgeon, me as an OBGYN, for you it's, sudden death, right? Like just walking to church and all of a sudden, something happened and the family member's like, "Wait, what?" And for me, it's potentially, knock on wood, all kinds of wood, that you have what should be a very glorious event turn into tragedy, you know? And it's just, I just think that the hospitals now have to kind of think about what they can do in order to mitigate these circumstances before they turn into these ultimate tragedies, because you put a
Yeah, it's
lot of
crazy.
people at risk. You put a
Yeah,
lot of people, not just the healthcare workers, you have other patients there, you have other patients' families there. Like, I can't even imagine if someone came onto our floor and did that. You understand what I'm saying? I'm like, you come to the labor and delivery floor and do something like that. That is, I can't even imagine what the headlines would be. But again, if it's acceptable at schools, taking out kindergartners, then why wouldn't it be acceptable at a labor and delivery floor? Which is extremely
got
sad.
it. Got it. Let's move on. Let's move on. All right. So next quick topic that we're going to talk about is another F around and find out time. So
Who
boom.
effed around and found out? Who
Y'all
found
see that
out?
right there, folks? Y'all see that? Y'all see that right there? Let me make my screen bigger. Y'all see that right there, folks? Y'all see that? Right
GOP
there.
may cut off student loan forgiveness for 4.8 million healthcare workers.
Now,
Mm.
folks, this we don't know if this is really going to play out the way how people think this may play out, but yo, if they're talking about this and the way in which folks in the federal government are losing their jobs right now, hey yo, this might be coming. So basically what they're saying, in order to make the budget, there's a bunch of budget cuts that they want to make, the GOP wants to make. And one of them is, okay, in order for us to save money in one place and be able to spend money in other places, whatever it may be, we should consider making tax cuts, or we should make sure that maybe we get rid of the PSLF program, which is a big deal, right? This is how the majority of folks or majority of doctors who, finance their way through medical school, this is how they plan on paying it back. A majority of them, right? They say, okay,
Mhm.
well, I'm going to graduate $300,000, $400,000 alone. But as soon as I start residency, I'm going to make those things, that the changes that I need to make, and I'll jump into the PSLF. I'll go through my 3 or 4 years of making my payments. And then when I become an attending, I'll make an additional 7 years, right? Because you got to make 10 years of consecutive payments and not miss.
Mhm.
And then I'll be out of student loan debt and I got to be at a nonprofit hospital. So not only is PSLF possibly on the chopping block, but also they're talking about taking out the nonprofit status of all hospitals also. So,
So, first of all, they don't even need to get rid of the
mm,
PSLF program. If they just say, listen, nonprofit status done, then that'll automatically eliminate the PSLF program, right?
yes.
So, that's there are what is it from that show Pearly Victorious? There's more than one way to skin a cat.
Wait, what show? What are you talking about?
Just like there's a lot of ways of wearing your hat, there's more than one way of skinning a cat.
There's
What,
more than one way to
what show is
skin
this?
in a cat. Pearly Victorious.
I don't know what this is. Is this from like
It's
when
a
you was what,
play.
13? I don't know
Get
what
out
that.
of here, Nate. It's a
I don't
play.
know
It's
what
an
this is.
old play, old black play.
Yeah.
But anyway,
Mm,
um,
mm.
so the government giveth and the government taketh away, just like Al
So
Gore
y'all,
said.
I'm gonna tell y'all
Okay.
right now. I don't know if this is gonna happen or not, but y'all see the swiftness at which people are losing their jobs. I would not be shocked if this is gone. The thing that we, even prior to this, me and you, it started. We paid off our debt, guys. We paid off what,
Mhm.
$662,000 of student loan debt in 3 years. We paid it off for a
Real.
variety of reasons. We paid it off for a variety of reasons, but the biggest one is we don't want to be in debt anymore. It made too many changes to our lifestyle. It almost literally didn't allow us to start having children for various reasons. But one of them is trying to afford IVF. Look, but when we paid off the debt, like we went so hardcore at it. And then when PSLF became a thing, I was slowly thinking, I was like, could we have kept a lot more of our principal, a lot of that money that we went to pay off debt? Could we have like said, okay, we're going to pay our minimums that we have to, and then use the rest of the money to kind of just put towards other things, right? Invest it in the stock market, get some more homes, do some very interesting things with that money as opposed to take all of that cash and put it towards student loan debt. It had me thinking. I don't know if you were thinking about it, but I was thinking about it.
I thought
And
about it,
that
but I quickly said, yeah, that it wouldn't have been for me. And part of the reason that for me, the PSLF program was, because we've been asked that before, like, oh, well, if you had known that PSLF was coming down the pike, right? Because it was very shortly after we paid off our debt that they were like, hey, everybody, you can get your student loans paid off if you have 10 years of X, Y, and Z. But for me, it was never going to be an option, because in order for me to have benefited from PSLF, that meant that I had to have been employed. And that is the price that you pay
But
for
we was employed though.
we were employed for 3 years, correct?
Uh-huh.
Right? We were employed for 3 years. That means that we would have had to have been employed for, at least for me, that was what? That would have been residency, and then 3 years of employment would have been a total of 7 years. That means 3 more years I would have had to be employed. I didn't want to be employed at the point at which I decided to quit my job. That's why I quit. I didn't want to be employed anymore. Right? So for me, doing those 3 extra years would not have been worth it.
Was it
Just
3?
wouldn't
I
have
think it
been.
was, wait, what is it? It was 3 we had to do, or?
It would have been 3 more years for me.
Uh-huh.
For you, it would have
Keep going. Just so
been
everybody, if
2.
you're watching on YouTube, I have a little graphic that says, what is public service loan forgiveness? To be eligible for PSLF, right? This is to make sure that your loans get paid off completely. They get forgiven after 10 years. You got to be enrolled in a qualifying repayment plan. You have to have a qualifying federal student loan. You have to work for a qualifying employer, which for the most part is a nonprofit hospital, right?
Mhm.
You have to submit the employment certification form. You can find that on any of the student loan websites. And you have to make 120 qualifying payments. You cannot miss these payments. And if you do that, you'll get your student loans forgiven. And
And for me, it probably would have been more, because I deferred, forbeared, missed
but
payments.
you
So
didn't know you was in a
actually,
but you didn't know you was in a program. So what you're saying is it would have retroactively. I don't know if it would have retroactively
no,
worked
it wouldn't have
for us,
retroactively worked for
but
me.
if you
Actually,
had known,
right.
but if you had known that you was in this program, I think if first of all, if you would have known that you were in this program or this program would have existed, you would have had a certain type of repayment plan. So the repayment plan is based off of how much you guys make, right? So let's say, for example,
Hmm.
like you have $400,000 in loans. At the time you was how much were you making as a resident? Like 40, 50, or maybe like 50,
Yeah,
60,
I
and you
feel
was in
like
Jersey.
50, 60. Yeah.
You was in Jersey. The cost of living is
Hmm.
higher. Rather than paying like, I don't know, whatever that would have been, like 4,000, every month, they bring it down to, I don't know, like a G, 2 Gs, whatever it may be, maybe
Hmm.
even less than that. And then you do that for several years from residency. And then it may change once you become an attending,
Hmm.
and then you have to make consecutive payments. It might be worth it, but you don't think so.
I didn't want to be employed anymore. I did not
Yeah.
like being employed. Like, people might
But we did,
sit
we
there and
did
be
three
like,
years. We
we
did
did
three
3 years of
years. And
employment.
then we said
Yes.
we didn't want to be employed anymore.
We
And then
didn't
if
want to
you're
be employed
locums, you
anymore.
can't do it. If you're locums,
Right.
you can't do a
You
BPSL.
don't
So,
qualify. For me, I just didn't want to be employed anymore. Like, the mental burden of being employed it was just too much for me, which is
so talk
why,
to us about that. Talk to us about that. What does that mean? What do you mean by that?
I look,
You didn't like bringing charts home.
I didn't like bringing charts home, right? So when I was employed, I was full scope OB, which basically means that I was in the office. I was seeing patients in the office, doing procedures in the office, and then I was on call as well at the hospital delivering babies, doing emergency surgeries. I was also in the hospital doing planned surgeries in the ER, all those kinds of things, right? Doing
Okay.
consults on the floor, right? And I just wanted to be able to do the things that I liked to do best. And for me, I liked being in the hospital. I liked being able to choose my own schedule, right? Because you could say, well, become a laborist. or become a hospitalist.
A lot of people don't understand what that means. When you say be in the hospital,
Yeah.
you mean be on call in the hospital. You don't like clinic.
Not
Be
right.
clear. You don't like clinic.
Right.
Okay.
So I don't like clinic. I just didn't like it. And so I wanted to be able to make those decisions on my own as to what my schedule was going to look like and what my day was going to look like.
So you wanted to work when you wanted to
couldn't
work. You
do
didn't
that.
want to have to
Yeah,
work. You didn't want to have to wait
exactly.
till the
I couldn't
beginning,
do
the end of
that.
the month to find out.
Yeah, I couldn't do that being employed. And, finding your name on a schedule on days that you're like, damn, I really wanted this day off. I just didn't want to have to deal with that anymore. I just didn't,
Yeah,
having to
I feel you.
finagle
I
and
feel you on
whatever.
that.
I just didn't want to
I
do
feel
that
you on that.
anymore.
I didn't like that anymore either. Cause there was a point I remember when I finished fellowship and I started working locums, I was like, so what do you mean just like, when do I want to work? I thought it was just like a schedule and then I would work this schedule based off of what the hospital needed me to work. And then that was it. I didn't know that like, no, like you only work when you can work or when you want to work. I was like, wait,
Right.
what? It
If
took
the
me
dates
several
align,
weeks, several months to figure that out. But so we did it for a year and a half where we were working on our own. And then we decided okay, we're not going to do locums anymore. We're going to work, like we're going to sign a contract with a hospital. We're going to be an employee. And it was a really big rude awakening. I did not like it at all. That was one of the biggest things of not controlling my schedule. And then there was just some other things that I just didn't like. And I felt like once I signed it on the dotted line, I lost like the ability to make certain decisions, like clinically, that if I stayed as a locums, I could be like, well, just don't invite me to come back anymore. Right.
right.
Whereas
You don't
if I'm
like the way I
employed,
do
it's
things,
like,
no, I won't come back.
right. Because if you get fired as an employee, that's worse than just not being asked to come back as a locums. Right. Those are
Correct.
two separate things. They just say, we don't want you to come back, but you getting fired because maybe like you disagree with like hospital policy or you disagree with like, your, the head of your department or something like that. Those are two separate things. And, I guess even going through residency and going through fellowship, I learned enough to know that I ain't like nobody telling me what to do. And I just felt like once I became an attending, I should be able to call the shots. And I think I was just like, it was too much smack in my face. Like, yeah, you're never going to call the shots. You're never going to do this. It was like, I felt like it was this. And I was like, yeah, I don't like this. Like, get out of
But
my
you
face,
Janet Jackson?
I'm John Cena. Like, yo,
John
get out of
Cena.
my face. Like, yo, I was like, yeah, I don't like that. I don't like that. But I feel what you're saying. I feel what you're saying. But listen,
Yeah.
yo, elections have consequences, y'all. Elections have consequences. And look, they got it at this point right now. They got it. I'm not saying I agree with it. I'm not saying that we shouldn't say anything, but I'm just saying, yeah, they got it. And this is a time over these next 4 years that y'all gonna have to just tighten the belts, and just kind of
So,
figure out a way so that you not go ahead.
I mean, here's my thing. I think that people always need to be on plan A and plan B, right? And if you think that something that you can't control is the thing that you're going to peg your life on, you need a plan B because you cannot control the PSLF. And we've talked about this on this show before where we're like, okay, well, PSLF, it didn't exist when we were paying off our loans, but now it
It was a,
exists, which
but it was
means
a problem early on. It was a problem early on because remember
I
they said
understand.
people would submit their papers and they weren't hearing anything back. And
Yes.
it took us like, it was right around like 2018, 2019, I think, when the real PSLF people who really went through the
Started
beginning.
rolling out.
Yeah.
Right. So it didn't exist before, but it exists now, which means it cannot exist later on, right? Like there's a possibility that it won't exist.
The alpha and the
right?
omega.
And the alpha and omega. And you know me, I always say, whenever you start something, you should always think about how that thing is going to end. We've talked about Tom Brady on this show before, right? at some point he had to think about what his career was going to look like at the end. But it
You still
seemed
got
like
that?
he never, huh?
I was like, I don't think he did actually.
No. I said, but that's what I was going to say. At some point he had to, but it seemed like he didn't.
But he didn't want to
Right? It
admit it.
seems like he never thought about what retirement would look like, which is why he essentially lost his, well, I can't say that's why, but he essentially lost his entire family right at the point at which he was supposed to retire. Right? And so it's like, well, what does this look like for you? And so that's what I would implore every single person listening to this show, doctor or not, that you need to think about what something is going to look like if it ends. If you are in something and that thing ends, what is it going to look like for you? And to have a plan B, have a plan B. Now I get it. There are things in life that you can't plan for, or, they just happen so suddenly. I get it. But there are a lot of things that you actually can plan for.
Yeah, I think the things that you are handing over control for, you have to figure
Mm-hmm.
out like, how can I make sure that if if this thing that I can't control completely takes over my life, what do I do to get out of it? Right. And student
Mm-hmm.
loans has the potential to take over someone's life, right? Or
Yeah.
take over, the economics and so forth.
Yeah.
So,
Their resources.
like, I think that, listen, y'all, like, y'all may have to start considering like what it's going to be like to put some stash away, put a stash away so that you can save money, so that you can make some large student loan payments that may be on
Yeah.
the table.
I mean, this goes
These
for
are
a lot
things.
of things.
I so
We talk.
that's something that I'm really concerned about, is just like that notion. The other thing is, what will it do will it affect admissions? Will it
Mm-hmm.
affect specialty, rates of
Right.
people going into specialties?
Right.
We already know that people, a lot of times they'll choose a certain specialty, or they choose specialties that have a higher amount of pay just because they help them get out of student loans quicker, or help them
Mm-hmm.
have a perceived
Or just,
lifestyle.
I
So
mean, yeah, exactly. Just for the lifestyle factor. But again, like I said, it goes for all kinds of things. That's why we always talk about disability insurance. That's why we always talk about life insurance on this show. We talk about all of these things,
we
right?
do.
All these things, all these things have a common thread. And that is something that you can control, right? In terms of the impact of that thing, right? You can control like what happens, at least financially, or at least, in some sort of lifestyle way, some sort of plan. You can make a plan for if that thing doesn't pan out.
Yeah.
Today
Yeah.
was,
Let's go ahead.
well, I'll say quickly, I know we probably weren't going to get on this subject at all, but speaking of, you know, um, pop culture. So today, or yesterday, actually, I found out about, Joyanne Reid being let go from MSNBC. Um, and if you know anything about me, I had said 2 years ago, I was like, they're going to get rid of Joyanne Reid. And today I was talking or texting with a friend of mine, and I was like, I feel like people are shocked. I feel like people are just shocked that this happened. And particularly her, I felt like just she had a clip on I forget what show she was on, but she had a clip that played on Instagram, and you know, obviously she was very upset about you know having lost that spot on MSNBC, and I was like, should we be leaving on a high note? Should we be taking control of our own lives? Should we be realizing that a platform that isn't yours and built for you, i.e., a program, PSLF, that isn't necessarily, built for you specifically, you don't control it? Should you be planning a plan B? I think the
Well,
answer
yeah,
is yes.
yeah, I
So
mean,
that way
look, I
you're
mean,
not shocked.
in our example, there's plenty of examples of people just like, not staying on network TV and going to YouTube and
Yeah,
creating their own, TV shows and so forth. But I
exactly.
think we get the point. I think we get the point, yo. So
Yeah.
let's shift gears. Let's get into our next topic. Real quick, actually, this is a very quick topic I want to talk about in residency and stress. So, one of the best parts about podcasting over the last 9 years, almost we're getting close to 10 years next year, is being in contact with the folks who listen to the show. They keep me young. They help me think about, where I was during their time, because we have residents who listen to the show. We have med students who listen to the show. And one of the residents who listens to our show just, reached out to me and said that they're taking some time off. And, I'm not going to name any names or anything like that. But they ended up being in a very good situation that's very healthy for them, and also healthy for the residency program. And kudos to them. But it had me thinking about residency and stress and, where I was, close to almost 15 years ago. And I'm going to tell you something right now. Like, I did not realize that I let residency change my personality. I didn't
Yeah.
realize that I didn't realize how much of a different person that I became during
Mm,
residency and even
mm,
after residency. Right.
mm.
And yo, I'm gonna
Reid,
tell you something right
don't.
now. I'm gonna tell you something right now. Y'all folks don't know, like, even the 80-hour work week, right, which we have right now, that is a tough thing, right? In surgery and OB, whatever specialty that you're in, it is a very tough thing. I remember my second year of residency, which at my program, the second year is mainly run the ICU. And that, when you have
You did it
when you have a
twice.
program, when you have a program that doesn't have many residents, but you still need coverage, yeah, that second year was, first of all, I think a lot of the administrative, the way in which we policed ourselves, we should not have been allowed to police ourselves, right? Like, the way in which the person starts at a certain time at 7 o'clock in the morning and then will go till the next morning. And then that person writes the notes for the next day.
That didn't
Just
make no
did
sense.
not, that didn't make any sense whatsoever. That was the stupidest thing. Like, I'm going to tell you something right now. Like, I didn't know better, but I kind of knew. I was like, this doesn't make any sense. I get it.
Logistically, that is stupid.
The person who's coming in fresh should be writing the notes, or there should be some responsibility split between the person leaving and the person coming on. So, just for context sake, if you started at 7 in the morning, you didn't write the notes that morning, but you rounded with the attending and you rounded with the person who was finishing that night, right? And then for the entire day, you're taking care of you coming in fresh. You're taking care of all the issues that are going on. You're responding to trauma calls. You're taking care of the general surgery patients that need to go to the ICU. And then at night, you're the senior in house, right? And then there's an intern there also. And then if someone needs to go to the OR, you're calling the attending, and if the patient needs to go to the OR, it's you and the attending, and you're also handling the ICU. And then, 5 o'clock comes in the morning, you got to start writing notes because you are rounding at 7 o'clock.
Hmm.
And that shit did not make any sense to me. But, you do that over and over and over again. I think my mindset was just so focused on, I'm getting through this program. There's nothing that's going to stop me, that you start to just accept bullshit. And that right there was something that I really look back on. I'm like, man, but when you're not in control, see, this is the key thing though. When you're not in control, you kind of have to play the game to
Mm-hmm.
get through the game, so that when you go back, you can change it and look back and say, yo, this didn't make any sense. That's where I was. And that was a lot of stress that I had during that time. And then that carried on with me into third year, and things started to look better into fourth year and obviously into fifth year. But I definitely felt like, looking back, the one thing that I wish I could have changed was that second year rotation, because I think that it's an unnecessary stress that you put on residents to have that type of lifestyle, just so you can have coverage in the ICU because nobody else wanted to in any of the other levels. So, before I ask you, the question I was going to ask is, have you ever felt like you need to take time out during residency?
Oh, yeah.
I did, man. I definitely felt like it, but I wouldn't let myself I wouldn't let myself really take those thoughts seriously. I wouldn't let myself really kind of just explore it, because I felt like if I did, like, I would go down this rabbit hole that I wouldn't come back from, but I don't know. I wouldn't do residency again. I'll tell you that right now. I would not.
I would not. I would
Yeah.
not do residency again either.
Yeah, because you
You
changed.
know,
You changed big time, yo.
yeah, right. You wish I changed.
You did, yo.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
You definitely changed during residency. I saw
What
sides
did
of
I change?
you that I just
Tell people that. Let's talk about that
you
because
were
we don't talk
just
about anything. Like what?
you were just more
What was I like
transactional.
before? What was I like before?
Um you
I
were
was
more,
suave,
I mean, you were still a
suave.
pain in the butt. Don't
I
get me
was
wrong.
suave,
No, you
fluff,
weren't suave. Never.
gregarious. Yeah.
Okay. You just are you going to go down the vocabulary list of words now?
Are you shocked
Is
by that
there a,
vocab though?
is there a word of the week?
Magnanimous. Magnanimous.
Is there
Yeah.
the magnanimous? Okay.
Mm-hmm.
No, I mean, I think before you were always uptight. Don't get me wrong. You're always uptight. Yeah, when it came to your education, you were always uptight about that. But you were definitely more relaxed. Um your first year of residency, I noticed it right away that you were on edge all the time. You were on edge all the time. There was not a time that I spoke to you in residency that I felt like you felt relaxed. There
Yeah, I
wasn't
never
a time.
relaxed. I never felt relaxed in residency.
No.
I felt like I would always get found out. I felt like mad imposter syndrome. I just never felt comfortable there.
Yeah.
Not the, not like I don't explain it. Like nobody said, "Yo, you about to be out." Nobody ever said that. For me, I just never felt comfortable. I felt
Well,
like
I
I was
think
on the
that first year in particular, because you were a categorical in a program that had prelims and categoricals, that you
yeah
were always afraid that you would have gotten downgraded. So that first year, and then the second year, when you took your in-service exam, I remember that because if I don't do well on this in-service exam, they're going to make me a prelim. And I don't want to do that. And it was just like, oh my God, like, what the hell is happening to, like, yeah, you changed a lot in residency. You were almost unrecognizable.
yeah
You were. But I loved you anyway, so
yeah. I
dumb ass me, but whatever.
you came out nice. You came out nice, right? You got your loans paid off, right?
And
You know what I'm
a
saying?
little bit of
You
mental
got that
trauma
fat
is all right.
you got that fat rock on your finger. I mean, come
Yeah,
on.
because,
What you
that
complaining
makes up
about?
for everything.
Look at your lifestyle now. Look at the background. Look at what you got.
Yeah,
Look at you. Look at
okay.
that. Look at that mic you got. Come on now.
Okay.
Listen, you
It
did
was
not. You
all
did not.
worth it for the mic. Thank God.
Uh-huh.
Thank God for
Uh-huh.
the mic.
Uh-huh.
But yeah, I think, you know, I think just that residency, I think residency does do things to people, takes people to dark places that they've never been before.
Is
And I
that
think
is that residency's fault or is that the person's fault? Because I struggle with that a lot where I'm like,
I
yo,
struggle
like
with that too.
I should not have let because you know what I'll be honest with you, like what happened, which a lot of people do, right, is you start to realize, look, the only way I could survive is like you start taking on like your captor's mentality, right? You start taking on the traits of your captors because you're like, yo, if they're doing this and they're surviving, I got to do that also.
Yeah,
That's
you're like,
not
I'm the
healthy.
captain now.
Look at me. Sure. I'm the captain now.
That's not healthy. And I definitely took that on. I wonder though, that's my fault though, right? Like
No,
the game is trying to finish and try to remain as true to yourself as possible,
so
right?
I don't
That's
look
what
at
I
it
think.
as I don't look at it as fault more than I look at it more as just kind of circumstantial, right? I mean, you can't fault a person for going into a dark place, right? Because most of the time they don't even know that they're going there. I don't even think you knew you were going where you were going because whenever I said something to you, whenever I kind of tried to bring it to your attention, your response to me was, but you don't understand. You don't understand. You're not here. You don't understand. right? And so it was like your coping mechanism to be able to essentially make it through a tough program. But I will say this, I think that residency programs don't do a good job at checking in with residents and making sure that residents, are okay. Um, I don't know if that's the residency's job to do
I was about
because
to say,
after all,
what if the resident is not okay? What is the residency supposed to do? Right? Because I'll
so
tell you,
right,
right?
which
Because
is why I said I don't know if it's their job. That's why I said I don't know if it's their job to do because after all,
because
they are
patients still need to get seen.
employees. Right. They are
Patients still need to get seen.
employees. And if they're doing it for residents, then they should be doing it for everyone because, the nurses are employees, right? The maintenance workers are employees. Like they would have to check in on everyone. Now, I understand that we're a different category of employees and that we're employees and trainees. But at the same time, it's like, well, ultimately we're getting paid to be there. So does does the residency program have an obligation to us to check in on our mental
What
well-being?
you know,
I don't
speaking of
I
well
don't know
being,
the answer to that.
speaking of what happened to the chief wellness officers and all that stuff? Did that go the way of like DEI also and shit?
No, see,
Remember that?
chief wellness officers just been, there's a gym downstairs that you'll never use because you're so freaking tired. You should go walk on
Yo,
the treadmill. Like, wait,
I
what?
sniffed that
What are you
out in the
talking
beginning. I was like,
about?
yo, I'm not falling for this chief wellness officer thing. This don't make no sense to me. But anyway, let's move on.
Chief wellness officer. I'm like, you know what the chief wellness officer should be doing? Giving out mani pedis. That's what they should be doing. Coming to the floor, giving out mani pedis. That's what they should be doing. Rubbing on my temples. Okay. Give me a massage. Me, don't start.
What?
Inside joke. Um Giving me massage. Like, that's what they should be doing. Taking my call, taking away my pager, picking
So
up,
how does
get
somebody
my Tiger text forwarded to them.
how does somebody who is struggling, how do they take the steps to let someone know that like, yo, they need help? Like
You
that's a
know,
tough one.
it's
How,
tough. Because I think
oh, how about
so. I'm
this?
going to tell you.
How do you recognize that maybe you need help? Is this like one of those
So
things where people tell
that's
you
what
like, yo, bro,
that's what I was going
you
to
need
say.
help, yo?
So I
Mhm.
so I had a resident. I had a junior resident who we were a little bit worried about, and I spoke with her and I asked her flat out. I was like, "Do you want to be here?" And she's like, "Yeah." And I said, "Okay." I said, "Because it doesn't seem like you want to be here." Now, I'm going to tell you this. I don't know if she took it as a challenge or she took it as the concern that it really was, right? Because that's kind of the conundrum, right? Well, if I say no, I'm not all right, what does that mean? What's that going to
Yeah,
what's the consequence?
that's like sending a medical student home early. Like,
Right.
wait, what do you mean? Should
What
I
do you
take this and go home early, or should I stay
exactly?
and like,
Or should I say, right?
yeah,
So it's like, well, so till this day, I don't know how she took it, right? But
still
it
practicing?
the reason, huh? She's still practicing, yeah.
Okay.
And she's a good doc. She's a
Right,
good
right.
doc. But there were points, and she was a first year, but there were points at which I saw in her things that I saw in me in my first year. And other people saw it too. And it was actually other residents who asked me to speak to her. I guess because I got a big mouth. But I was like, it doesn't seem like you really
You
want to be
think?
here.
No,
Yeah.
no.
So I don't know. I don't know because I think you asked a really good question. How do you recognize that you actually have a problem before you even tell someone? Or do you Are you so competitive with yourself that you're like, nah, I can do this. I can do it. I'm in a dark place, but I can do it. I can do it. I
Oh,
can do
I
it.
figured out quick. I told you one of my resident or one of my upper levels flat out came to me. We were signing out. He's like, "Yo, did you take a shower?" And I knew because I would go several days not taking a shower. That's not like me. But because,
Right.
you
Going
get to
into
work
depression.
you get to work at 5 in the morning and you don't leave till like 8 o'clock at night. That's an exaggeration, but you
Hmm.
probably don't leave till like, and then you stay up all
Sometimes
night,
you
you're
do.
studying, you stay up all night, you studying, and then you wake up and you're like,
You
oh
pass
shit, it's
out.
like you wake up and it's like 2 minutes, 5 minutes before you're supposed to be on the highway. And you're like, oh shit, you got to and you just start doing it over and over and over again. And you're on edge. And then you realize, oh snap, I haven't taken a shower, or somebody else has noticed. Right.
Hmm.
Or like, I remember getting a phone, my mom tried to reach me in the OR. Nurses picked up the phone and my mom is mad apologetic because I guess I've been snapping. Didn't realize this, right? You start to realize, yo, you've got a problem. So, it's just, yeah, I think it's okay to say that sometimes residency got you acting a way that is highly abnormal and that you may need to
Yeah.
check in and get some help, whether that's seeing a therapist, whether that's talking to a loved one, whether that's talking to a trusted one. I don't even know if you can even talk to someone in your residency, if that's possible, because that's scary, right? You think that that might be used against you. You know what I'm saying?
Right. Or that person invalidates, right? Because they themselves have not recognized that within themselves. They might invalidate. Like, what you mean? Like, yo, you gotta just come on, you just gotta do it. But I will say this: if someone approaches you, take what is it, the olive branch? It's not really olive branch, but you know what I mean.
Yeah, you're not good at
Take,
colloquialisms.
no, no, you're not good at colloquialisms, but heed the warning, essentially, right? Heed the warning.
Take a shower.
Take a shower. If someone comes to you, if someone
You know how
comes to you,
embarrassing that is, yo? Like, yo, we be, I think, man, you
well,
ain't
but
take a shower.
it's not embarrassing though. It's not. It's not embarrassing, right? You know me. I say so. The way that I approach a lot of things about you in our marriage is
Well, you've
that
never had to tell me that I didn't take a shower because I take showers.
I'm not talking about taking a shower, Nee. I'm
Oh,
talking
what are we talking about?
about
What are we talking about?
just human interaction in general. When someone, says something to you that's a little off kilter, is that
Okay.
you have to, when you recognize that someone is off kilter, right? Or if someone says something to you that you're like, wait, what? There's got to be the understanding that there is concern more than there is anger behind what is being said,
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
right? So I have to be, if you start acting crazy in this house, I can't just, I don't know why me is, blah, blah, whatever. I don't know why he's doing that. Why he don't pay those bills? Why why is he out all night? Why is he, just
Y'all
acting
see how she talked
strange?
financial immediately, though, right?
Yes, I
Financial.
did. But if you start, if I notice that there are things about you that you're just not doing, like, oh, he didn't take care of the car like he usually does. Oh, X, Y, and Z. I have to start being concerned about you
Oh, he
more
won't get his
so.
car fixed. He driving with the passenger what was it? The passenger window is just y'all. Yeah, I can't be
The
telling too
side
much of
mirror,
myself. I'm not
the
talking about
side
this because
mirror.
people are gonna be like, yo,
Yeah.
you was depressed in residency. I'm not saying shit.
I'm sure
No,
you were. I'm
no.
actually sure. I'm actually very sure that you were depressed in residency. But you have to be more concerned about somebody than you are angry with them. And I think that that's really important, because it allows you to give a person some grace. And if the person who's receiving that understands that when you approach them about that thing, that they are actually more concerned about you than they are upset with you, then it might be a little bit easier for that person to recognize in themselves that, hey, I'm going down a dark, path. I'm going in a deep, dark place.
Yo,
That was
it's
your
hard to
problem,
say.
was that
It's hard to
you
accept.
never,
It's hard to accept
you didn't
when you in a
accept
sea of
that.
sharks. When you in a sea of sharks, it's hard to accept. I'm for real.
Right.
You know my personality, where I come from, and all that stuff. It's kill or be killed. So for me, it's like I made it too far to get killed. So I was just like, look, whatever y'all say, I'm gonna make it. but you don't realize that it's changing you. So I think that definitely some malignant, behavior that occurred and
Yeah.
stuff. And I'm glad that you stuck with me because I can't front. Like I did change and I became mad annoying to deal with and so forth. On the real, I became mad annoying to deal with and stuff. Even though I was fine, you know what I'm saying? Like in the
What?
inside, I was on the,
What?
even though I was fine. Look at this. You think I wake up like this? This takes work. I was fine.
Oh, okay. I was
You know what
about
I'm
to
saying?
say, yeah, a whole lot of work.
Even though
You gotta
I'm
go.
fine.
You gotta go to work on Myra's feet. Hit
That's
it,
right.
Alfred.
You gotta go to work on Myra's feet.
Even though I'm fine, I think inside, like I was struggling and stuff. And I think that, in a
You
situation where
fine.
particularly, see, this is the part when someone is trying to give you advice in the program, like you don't even know if they're like trying to get at you, if they trying to snipe at you, or if they,
Right.
like you said, giving the proverbial olive branch because you feel like, yo, you're in a sea of sharks, right? Like you feel like,
Yeah.
I'm in the lion's den and you're not going to knock me out. You know what I'm saying? So it's really tough to accept those things. And
Yeah.
I just wanted and then we probably should end the show on this end because I know there was other things that we wanted to talk about. But before we go down and make the show too long, to the resident who reached out to me, I heard you. I appreciate you sharing that. And sometimes you just got to take a mental break. Shout out to the programs that are out there that are giving the students and the residents the space to kind of say this stuff because, a lot of times you're going to have to make an uncomfortable change, right? In order to see effective change in your program, right? A
Mm-hmm.
lot of people are going to have
Mm-hmm.
to get uncomfortable with maybe they have to take an additional call to allow their
Mm-hmm.
fellow resident to take time away that they need so that when they come back stronger, right? That's the
Right.
type of change that people talk about and say, well, our healthcare system is broken, but then you don't have the time, you don't have the patience to deal with the inconvenience to deal
Mm-hmm.
with the healthcare system changing, right? If you want it to change, there's going to have to be some inconvenience. There's going to have to be some pain that comes with that. I'm going to leave it at that. I don't know if you want to say anything about that.
Yeah, I mean, the only other thing that I will say about that is, let us not underestimate that if one resident is feeling that way, that potentially more residents are feeling that way in the same program. And so, when you do end up giving the other residents that extra call, you might be snowballing the effect as a program. So I'm hoping that those programs actually find a different solution than to pile on to the other residents who are remaining.
Well,
Because
I mean, at this point, it's like, stop being exclusionary with shit. Y'all need to accept more residents. Simple as that. So I think that's the easiest problem.
I mean, yeah, that is
We got
easy.
we
Yeah,
got a doctor shortage. We got a doctor shortage.
right.
You got
And
mad med
we got a
schools.
bottleneck. We got
You
a
got mad med
bottleneck.
schools going on right
Yeah,
now. And,
yeah,
obviously this is from a federal government level. Like there needs to be
right.
more funding, for
Yeah.
residency to be out there, but you can't be
Or
like
hire
having
locums. I'll
residencies.
be a resident for locums.
You crazy as hell. Would you do that? Hell no.
Hell
I ain't
yeah.
doing that.
Hell yeah, I
Hell
would.
nah. Well,
I
if you
charge
actually
like
think about it,
crazy, but yeah, I do it.
but the question is, would you be cool with like taking orders from people? I'll take orders from people too for like a certain amount for like 150 an
So
hour.
what?
I'd do it. Yeah.
So what?
200 an
You know what
hour.
I'm saying? 200 an hour. You don't make 200 an hour now. Wait,
The
way more than that.
residents are gonna look at you like, yo, I only make like 50 G's, yo. You making how much?
Nah, man. Listen, let me tell you something. If I had to do locums in residence, like as a resident again, like, yo, it would definitely be more per hour than what I charge now. Definitely. Okay. I'm like, you gonna make me go through that pain again? It's gonna cost you. Mm-mm. Nope. Nope.
All right, y'all. Yo, thanks for listening to Docs Outside the Box. Everybody who writes in lets us know how you feel. Let us know how you feel in the show notes. You can send us emails. You can send us text messages. Everything is in the show notes. Everything is in the show description if you want to get in touch with us. But once again, thank you again for listening to Docs Outside the Box. Let's let Dr. Renee get that sleep. Go get your sleep on. And
Tired. So
we're gonna
tired.
catch you guys in another episode, y'all.
Good night.
Peace, y'all.